Hi, it's Pete here. Welcome to the vlog, and this is how to get the best of your embossing part 1. Now, it's crucial, there will be 2 parts. So Josh is coming along a little later with part 2, and I'm going to show you about 2 or 3 or 4 maybe, different techniques today. And it is all about chapter 2 embossing, as well as some wonderful folders. But the techniques that I'm using will apply to old folders and everything that's coming out. So I'm looking forward to it. Hope you are. Let's get going. Right, let's take a look at some of the folders we're going to be focusing on today. And these are, I've obviously used distress inks to bring out the texture. We've got floral pillows. We've got mark making. I love that one. I love the floral pillows as well. We're about to see that. We've got half mandala. We've got geo diamonds and floral scrolls, which is very simple but spectacular. We've also got ornamental pattern. I think Josh is going to focus more on that one, but we're going to be looking at some techniques using some of those 5 today, and they are all from chapter 2. Now, we start with a piece of card. I'm going to be using black card. It could be any color, really. But the most important thing when you are 3D embossing, or indeed 2D embossing, is that you spritz with clean water. Now, if you have opulent cardstock, obviously it's metallic on one side and plain on the other, then you just need to do the plain side. That's very important, and I'll tell you why. Because cardstock has fibers. It has thin, very fine fibers, but when you're embossing, it puts the card under a lot of pressure. So what we don't want to do is have this card split. We don't want it to distort in any way, shape or form. So in soaking it like this, it allows those fibers to stretch, and it gives you a much crisper, cleaner emboss. So let's pop that into my folder, and I'm using floral pillows, so I'll put that somewhere in the center and bring it together. Now today, I'm going to be using my old friend, the Big Shot Foldaway. And you can see why it's called the Foldaway. The handle folds away, the wings fold away, and it's ready to go. It's exactly the same now as your beloved Big Shot. With 3D embossing, very important, we only use 1 plate. So you take away the plate, you also take away the top of the platform. That's your wafer thin die adapter. So we're using our base platform, and we're using this plate. Now, we've got the folder, and what we usually recommend is that when using these folders, that we run them through 2 or 3 times. That's entirely up to you. 2 is fine, 3 is better. But, you know, play around with these things, see what works best for you. So there we are, that's gone through. And then if I just take my machine out for a second, we'll have a look at that. Open that up. And there we are. Now, I hope you can see this, but that doesn't really matter at this point, because there are so many techniques that I can use to bring that beautiful, gorgeous texture to the fore. So we're going to start working on that. So today you can see I'm working on my Sizzix media mat. It's a silicone media mat. It rolls up, it folds out, it's always perfect, never distorts. It's a lovely, it's almost like a matte kind of silicone, and it's perfect for working with inks and acrylics and all your pastes and all those other messy things. Now at the side here we have different wells which you can put water in, which you can put inks in, which whatever, however you want to use it, it's entirely up to you. But today what I'm going to be doing to bring this wonderful texture and detail to the fore is I'm going to be using 2 acrylics, and they are Sizzix creamy acrylics, and I'm going to be using hibiscus and cherry blossom. Now you don't need too much. I say this over and over and over, but you can always take away, or you can always add more rather, but you can never take away. It's like salt in cooking. There we are, so we got the cherry blossom and the hibiscus there. And I'm going to apply this now. This is kind of a dry brush technique. And people would take their brush, dip it into the paint and brush it very gently over the top. But I found a preferred method. I like to use one of these lovely little sponges. You could use a makeup sponge, artsy sponges, watercolorists use these kind of things. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to dip it into that red paint there. And you'll notice that I'm getting most of it off. Okay, I don't want too much, and I'm very, very lightly. And I do mean lightly. And the reason is that, as I said before, I can always go back and add more. But if I put too much on here, if I get some horrible blobs, it's impossible. You have to start from scratch, you really do. So you can see already that this is really starting to stand out. But that's going to be even better by the time we get to the end of it. And there's a good reason why I'm using 2 shades as well, and we'll see that as we go along. So this is, of course, the hibiscus. And the great thing about the creamy acrylics is that they're not as fluid, they're not as liquid as some other matte acrylics on the market. So it's much easier to control this technique. So we're brushing, we're going very, very, very carefully. It's always tempting, especially when the camera's on you, it's always tempting to rush this. But that's where we make mistakes. So please, please, please benefit from my experience, because I have rushed in the past and I have made mistakes. So just take your time. And you can see I'm going from top to bottom and from left to right. Now, with certain folders, you can do a more dramatic, kind of artsy, mixed media paint drag technique, but that's a technique for another day, really. So there we are, that's the red. Already we're seeing that it's starting to pick out, so it's leaving areas on the black card completely black and some of the raised areas in red. Now I'm going to go with the lighter color now, and this time I'm going even lighter than before, and you'll see I'm just putting it on top of that red. So again, quite subtle, and this time I'm almost kissing the card. Literally just touching it. It's fabulous. There we are. And this time, wow, you can see all that detail popping out. And the red is always under there, sort of poking through. So that's why we're going much lighter with the pink. Although the effect is far more dramatic, because it's a lighter color. And there it is. Then all you need to do, once you finish this, simply need to take your sponge, pop it straight into water. You don't want that drying on the sponge. And there we have it. That's how it finishes. It's absolutely glorious. The level of detail, the depth of emboss in this folder is quite stunning. And now let me show you some other examples that I've done using this. Now, here are some pieces. That one is mixing blues and greens together. That one, we've got some browns going on there and some ivories. That one, you can see I've almost done an ombre effect. So we've got a green at the top and a light blue coming from the base there. So you know, you can do ombre, you can do rainbow, you can do whatever you want. And here are a few cards that I've created. We're using the Good Vibes #4 stamps on all of these, and again, that's the 2 greens. Then the next one, we've got some lovely lilacs going on there, purple and lilac. And then finally the one that we just used, which was the pink, the cherry blossom, and the hibiscus red. So really versatile technique. So many things that you can do with this, whether you call it paint dragging or dry brushing. The paint dragging is a slightly different technique, but we're using the sponge, which is what I use for paint dragging. We're using the sponge to apply almost a dry brush technique. So it's kind of a new way of doing that. So let's move on to technique number 2. So I'm going to be using this lovely product, Decorative Metallic Flakes. This is the lightest tub, but oh my goodness, it's almost like the TARDIS. You open this up and you wouldn't believe how many of these metallic flakes are actually jam-packed into this little tub. I'm not going to open it up because they get everywhere. They are so much fun, but boy oh boy. So what I tend to do is I put them in a tub, something like this. If you have an old plastic tub, you can get them from pound stores or dollar stores. You can put them in that and keep them to one side. The reason I use this is because they can get everywhere. Now, what I've got in here, and I'll show you, is I put silver, gold, and rose gold, because those are the three colors that you can get this wonderful product in: silver, gold, and rose gold. So I have 3 tubs, one with silver, one with gold, one with rose gold, and I have one tub which has all 3 of them. You get a wonderful effect from using this technique. Now, another thing that I want to show you is not sticky grid sheets, goodness me, but adhesive sheets. These are permanent adhesive sheets, and you are getting 10 sheets in a pack, and they're about 6 by 6 or 15 centimeters by 15 centimeters. And what they are, it's like double-sided tape, except in a sheet, in a square sheet. And this is what it looks like. Simply, all you do is peel off the backing and adhere it to your piece of card. Now, once that's done, you can die cut that card, and you can use those die cuts like stickers, so you can stick them straight down, which is great if you've got really, really fine die cuts that you want to place down accurately without having to resort to using PVA glue or whatever chosen adhesive you like. It makes it much easier, much quicker. Tell you he's a big fan of these, Mr. Tim Holtz, so can't be bad, can it? Now, what I have done is I've got a strip of card here which I've cut to size, and I've actually applied one of the adhesive, or part of an adhesive sheet, to this. So I'm just going to peel that away. That exposes the adhesive. If you're die cutting, obviously you die cut and then you peel away the backing. Now let's dip this, and this is where the fun really starts. Okay, so I'll just take my media mat out for a second, and I'm going to press that straight down. Now, you can see, and you can see why, with these delicate, super fine flakes, you can see why we put them in this tub, because they're very flyaway. But you know what? It's one of those things, it's worth it. The techniques that you can achieve with this is stunning, particularly if you have something that's three-dimensional, like say a vase, or something like that, or a picture frame, for example. You can put these flakes on there, and they wrap perfectly in all those little creases, those little indents, go around any curve. And that's what we do have. Foil sheets which are flat sheets, but these guys, well, they're perfect for more dimensional projects. So I'm using this sponge. It's a piece of rough sponge. You can use a kitchen scouring sponge, I guess, but I'm using this just to get those pieces off. Now, there you go. That's where I want it to be. So let's pull it to one side. Let's put that delicate, very superfine flake away. Now that's pretty cool by itself. That's a great, great background. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to emboss it. Now, you can emboss metallic cardstock, of course, and you get a lovely, smooth, flat finish. But this is quite different. It gives you a different vibe. It's almost like matte and gloss at the same time, and it's kind of broken, so it's not completely uniform, which I kind of like. So let's bring my media mat back in. And, oh, no, let's take it out the way. We're going to bring my machine back in. That's what I want to do. So here it is. It's my Foldaway again. And we've got a platform and a single cutting pad. Now, I did explain last time that it's good to spritz. Obviously, you can't spritz the top because it's covered in metallic. But I am going to spritz the back of this, because every little helps, and that will help those fibers stretch and give me that lovely deep emboss, which I adore. Now I'm using the half mandala, and it's just a question of choosing the area that you want to emboss. sandwich it in the folder, then place it onto the platform and run it through. And again, this time I'm going to run it through twice. There's one, out the other side, and two. So that should give me the depth of emboss I'm looking for. And here we are. Here's the reveal. And there it is. Oh my word. Now you'll notice here how the imperfections that I talked about, and that lovely, using the rose gold, the gold, and the silver. It's quite a different effect from using opulent cardstock. It really is. It's a gorgeous effect. And one of the great things that this works with, if you use any kind of resists or things like that, or you want to put some ink on here and wipe it away, I'll show you exactly what I mean. Because this one, I've used a kind of a patina over the top of the rose gold, and then I've brushed it away so it's just left there, and it's almost like, you know, old patinaed copper. So the next one, and this is the mark making folder, and it's kind of got a kind of Central American Mayan kind of vibe to this. I love that, and I used a brown paint and then just wiped over the top to wipe it away, and it's left, you can see it glittering there. But it's, again, it's a very different vibe from your opulent cardstock. And then, last but not least, I hand cut this frame just using the silver, and I embossed that. I just put it in the folder and ran it through. Very, very simple, but super, super effective. And that's one of the best ways to get metallic finishes, but that aren't super shiny, but getting metallic finishes onto your embossing. And then let's take a look. Let's take a look at the three. So we've got the silver, we've got the gold, we've got the rose gold, and finally all three together, which we've just shown. I'm sure you'll agree it's a stunning effect. I really like it, and yeah, it's one of my favorites. Let's move on to technique number 3. This time we're going to be doing a technique which is kind of been around for a while, but it's something that I love, particularly with distress oxides. And there's lots of fun stuff that you can do with this. I'm sure that when I show it to you, even if you've never seen it before, you will immediately start thinking of some of the wonderful creative possibilities. Now, what I'm going to do to start off is I'm going to apply, so I'm using my folder this time as both an embossing folder and a printing plate. So I'm taking some distress oxide ink, and I'm using chipped sapphire. You can use any colors you want, or combination of colors. And I'm applying it to the folder. Now, you can't really see it. And this is great when you've got 2D not 2D folders, but multi-level folders. This is perfect for your multi-levels, because what I'm doing is I want to make sure that I get enough ink, and you can see I'm continually, I want to get an even-ish coating on my brayer. Doesn't really matter. I mean, if you want, you can actually take this and apply it straight onto there, and you get a sort of a more broken kind of finish, which you know, it might be what you want. I'm actually going for a slightly smoother finish. So that's chipped sapphire. Now, what I like to do once that's done is just wipe off most of that ink onto a paper towel, because I'm going to bring in a second color. This time it's evergreen bough. So it's a kind of a blue-green going on, whereas chipped sapphire is sort of almost, well, it's a blue, but it's very much on the indigo or purple side of blue. And let's put that on there. You can see as I blend it together with that blue, sort of moving into the darker blue, you can see it's starting starting to pick up there. You can definitely see the difference that's making on that folder. So there we are. We're going for a very kind of imperfect finish with this. And I'll remove that. Then all you need to do with your brayer is take it off, run it under a tap. It's good to go again. So, you can do this with distress inks as well. Slightly different finish, but experiment, play around, please do. Now, that's ready to go. I'll take my medium mat out and bring in my trusty Big Shot Foldaway. Before I do anything, as before, I'm going to spritz my piece of card, both front and back, and rub the water in there. And then put it to one side, just for a second, just to let that water soak in. And here's one that I prepared earlier. Now, there's my inked surface. This is very important. I want to place this against the other side because I don't want it moving around. If I put it on there, it starts to move around, you don't get a great image. So what I want to do is when I close this up, I want to make sure that I keep finger pressure on there. That is very important. I don't want that moving because essentially what you've got here is a printing plate stroke embossing folder. And this time, I'm going to put this through just the once. Through that, I'm still keeping the pressure on here. I'm moving there. And when I open this up, there we have it. Really clean, really crisp, lovely. We've got two colors going on there. We've got that blue, we've got that chipped sapphire, we've got that lovely evergreen bough going on at the base. So this has picked up all of that ink, but crucially where the emboss is, it's left those areas white. So let's put that to one side because I want to show you some of the projects that I've made using that. Now, if you use a few different folders, and if you use a few different colors, how about creating some lovely tiles like that? And we've used one of these dictionary definition stamps there, also chapter 2. But you can see I've used the geodiamonds, I've used the mark making, and I've used the half mandala to get that effect. Speaking of the half mandala, there we are. Now this is done using distress ink, so you can see it's slightly different. It's more broken up. But it's a lovely, lovely effect. And again, it's one of those techniques that really does get the best out of your 3D embossing folders. Then next up, a more kind of Mayan look. Again, we've done the tile effect. So what I've done is I've embossed large pieces and I've cut them to size and placed them on the card. Thus, and then finally, one of the best ways, we talk about 3D embossing folders, we talk about fancy techniques, but you know what, just on white card, there's nothing quite like it. This combines the two, so I've actually embossed the front of the card, and then I've done this panel in the center, just using a pink ink there, and I've also stamped using the very self-same ink. And there you go. So, there is a couple of other things that I do want to share with you, and I want to remind you that Josh is coming up with part 2 of this, so he's got a whole raft of techniques of his own, a lot of different folders. I'm just going to reach down here and I'm going to bring up some, obviously, the folder that we've just used. How about applying some of our wonderful gilding waxes? And there are 3 different gilding waxes there, 3 different shades. If you want to go for a more earthy look, this is with distress inks, obviously, and again with distress inks. But you could even use every color of the rainbow like that. But there's one other thing, and I might do a vlog on this by itself because we've got a cool kind of a mixed media background there going on. But I want to show you what this is. This is really cool. Now, it looks kind of really, look at the edges there. Let me put it against white. You can see that it's kind of broken up. It's imperfect. And it's actually hot glue. So You can do this with hot glue, and you can put it onto the folder and then spread it with a palette knife. But it's always best, and I sound like I'm an infomercial, I'm really not. The Sizzix hot glue gun, it runs hotter than the majority of craft glue guns. So that means you get a continuous pump with the handle. You don't have to wait for the heating element to heat up again. And it makes it slightly thinner. So what that does is it fills all the little gaps. So you get that gorgeous, glorious detail every single time. It's a cool technique. It's a lot of fun. It's great if you're into mixed media, for example, and you can really spread this glue out with a palette knife. I wouldn't suggest you use your finger, definitely some form of palette knife, and then it just peels off straight away afterwards. So that's another technique, and maybe, as I say, we can do that again sometime, but I hope you enjoyed that. Lots of fun, as usual. I love 3D embossing. There is actually no limit to what you can do with these. There are loads of techniques. If you know of a technique that you love, we'd love to hear from you. Please send it along. But thank you very much for joining me today. I've been Pete, and I'll see you again soon.